welcome and thank you for tuning in. My name is Evelianne and you are listening to Maritime Unity Talks. Today we will talk with Anna Roeker on holistic psychology. Please join this conversation as we explore the interconnectedness of mind, body, trauma, mental problems, childhood, etc., and discover how healing on multiple levels can reconnect us with our authentic selves. Today, we are going to talk about the benefits and the difficulties of therapy. Hi, Anna. Welcome.
Hello.
Before we start, can you please tell us a little bit something about yourself and what people can expect hearing from us today?
Yeah, sure. I can try. So my name is Anna. I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist who lives in Namibia, which is the desert part of Africa. I specialize in holistic psychology, which basically just means that I really try to incorporate mind, body, and soul. I try to expand a little bit on classical psychology, which is very focused on mind. So talk therapy, things like CBT and psychoanalysis, but it doesn't really incorporate much of the body. And I just find that many of the challenges many of us suffer from also are happening on the level of the body and not just on the mind. So by incorporating body practices and healing of the body, we very often find that it's a lot more effective and quicker at achieving alleviation of symptoms and feeling better, feeling more positive, having a lot more energy, and just, being in a generally more balanced and healthy state. Today, we wanted to discuss therapy because I think there is, unfortunately, even in this modern day and age, still a huge stigma attached to therapy. There is a lot of misconceptions of what therapy is and what it is not. I have been to therapy myself, but I obviously also offer therapy. So I'm hoping that I can provide some insight on both of those kind of perspectives. And I think both of us have some personal experience of what the consequences if someone does not get help, and if they feel like they're not allowed to get help, or they can't get help, or they cannot be helped. So I think maybe also just touching on the importance of therapy and how it can literally change someone's lives and how it can save someone's life. So I think that's the topic of today.
Yes, definitely. I'm very excited to speak about this together with you. Thank you so much for talking about this together. And yes, I think just before we started, we quickly talked about some of the remarks that at least I had a few times when I went to therapy quite some years ago. And I got questions about, hey, you went there 5 times already. Are you now finished? Because if you're not going there, if you have to go there, then obviously it's not helping, right? Because if you come there with a problem and the problem is not solved after 5 times, then definitely the therapy is not working. And I was like totally amazed. And also you read it on social media sometimes, or you hear it from people talking about these same things. And I think it's good to know this, because if you know this, then you can just explain, okay, maybe it's the same a meal. If you feel hungry and you're having a meal, then definitely you will not be hungry anymore, but you don't have to feel bad for feeling hungry the next day again. And again, having to buy food or go through a tree and grab an apple and eat it, or sometimes you just need it, and you need to find other people also to help you with some stuff that you don't know or that you don't have available for yourself. And I think once you figure that out in your mind, it's much, much easier to reach out for support or help or professional help as well on the mind, body, and the soul.
Absolutely. I think there's this weird misconception about therapy that I think it starts with the misconception about what happiness is and what health is and what being is. We tend to have this idea that it's something that we just reach and then it stays in our lives. And once you've figured it out, what is happiness, then it's something that will just stay in your life. And then you've achieved happiness and whoop-de-doo, you don't have to do anything else. Unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not how it happens. Very often happiness is much more grounded in the process of looking within and connecting with yourself and taking steps to move into more alignment with your authentic self rather than looking outwards and trying to adjust to the environment that you're in. So I think that's probably also where this misconception about therapy comes from, that you just get to a stage where you've sorted out all of your problems and then you're good to go and you never have to go to therapy again. And again, nothing could be further from the truth because your life is changing all the time. There are people coming and going in your life. There are challenges that are coming and going. You might change jobs. You might move into a different country. You might be suffering from an illness, or someone close to you might be suffering from an illness. And any of these experiences might just put you back in a situation where things come up that you have to deal with. And you don't have to deal with them on your own because it's completely normal for there to be things in our lives that are just completely overwhelming for us. And we've never been trained. We haven't been taught how to deal with them. So it's just normal to get help. And it's okay to get help. And it's okay to get help until you feel like, I now have the capacity and I believe I'm capable of dealing with this by myself further. For some people, that might be 2 sessions. For some people, that might be 2 years. And for some people, therapy might just be such a good space for them to really have a committed time for working with themselves and spending time with themselves, which they don't have the chance to do anywhere else in their life. So why would you want to take that away? Why would you want to stop that? There is someone there listening to all you have to say, really making you feel heard and feel seen, helping you understand a lot more about who you are and how you're functioning. And to many people, this can be such a great, insightful experience of self-growth and self-love. I really think it's a very personal experience, but I think this thought of there's a problem to be figured out. And once you've gone to therapy for, 5 sessions or 10 sessions, you should have figured it out by now. And if you haven't, there's something wrong with you. And then you need to rethink, is my problem just something that's never going to be sorted out? Or is the therapy not working? Is the therapist not good enough? It's really a process. And it's a process that takes however long it's going to take. And that's for no one else to decide, but for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for saying that, because it's on point, I think. And also, I hope that many people who are hearing this, so take a little bit support out of that, because it's not very helpful to have guilt and shame when you're already struggling with something or feeling.
Yeah.
I think also what I wanted to ask you is, in my experience, a lot of people struggling with things that are maybe a little bit hidden or normalized in the society or whatever it may be, you can feel like stuck sometimes, right? You can feel like you're in freeze mode, or life is just making you inside of this box, and it can feel like maybe even a prison sometimes. You feel stuck. So do you have some advice as how people can get out of that mode and into connection with other people or a connection with themselves, or is there a good way?
So something that I tell almost all of my clients to do is daily journaling, because I think when we really force ourselves to almost create a space where we're talking to ourselves, but in the form of writing. So you're not just sitting there thinking about things, you're actually putting it on paper. And what that does is really forcing your brain to put words to what you're thinking. So it provides a little bit of structure. It forces you to describe how you're feeling and not just think about it. So how am I feeling? What does this mean? And it also forces your brain to slow down a little bit, because you can't write as quickly as you think. So there's a lot more processing going on there. And it's, in a way, it's a bit similar than talking to a therapist. A therapist doesn't know what's going on in your brain. You have to explain it to them in the way that feels right to you. So that means you have to think about which words to use. you have to figure out for yourself, what does this mean and what does this actually feel like and where does this come from and what memories might this be associated with? So all of that is just providing a little bit of structure to your thoughts, putting them in perspective, which really helps yourself understand more about your thoughts as well. And it provides a lot of insight. And it's in a way that someone is not sitting opposite you where you can feel that their facial expression or their body language, or they make sarcastic comments, or they make fun of you, or they laugh at you. So there's no one except a notebook. And a notebook is completely non-judgmental. There's nothing to fear there that it's going to feel like it's attacking you or criticizing you. So it's really just providing a safe space to get things from here out. And in a way, I've noticed with most of my clients that they immediately, even after a few days or a week of doing this, they very often say, this is such an interesting experience. And I was writing about this the other day and I had not thought about that person for years, or this memory came up when I was writing. So it's really almost this communication channel that we're creating that deals with things that are at a much deeper level than consciousness. So it's almost a path into our subconscious. And we're also engaging in something that the writing part is something that engages our creative part of the brain rather than the logic part of the brain. So it's not math, it's not doing calculations, it's not logical, it's creative, which also forces us to switch off the logical part of the brain a little bit, but go more into the sort of flowy and intuitive and gut feeling and kind of authentic version of ourselves and our memories and who we are and how we function. And I think that can also bring a lot of the subconscious stuff that is buried to the surface, because very often we try to function on autopilot. We try to use only our logical brain, but our subconscious has a lot of information that can be really valuable for us to discover. So if we're feeling disconnected from ourselves, we have to start looking somewhere. And writing is a great way to start that process and just see what comes up without any judgments. We're not judging. The notebook isn't judging. We're just finding out what's buried somewhere in there.
That's such a great tip. Thank you so much. It sounds like that's a really good way to ease your mind a little bit and to also be committed to have results, right? That must also be good for some people. And is there some way to get into your body when you feel stuck? Because at least for me, when I'm like in this freeze mode state, I would just like to stay on the couch with my phone all day and scroll, or stay in bed, just stay inside when it's nice weather. So is there a way also for your body to be activated, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on what that entails for you. So very often, if we think of the nervous system is basically a good metric to see in what state our body is at the physiological level. So it should be ideally in a nice, flowing, flexible balance between what we call a parasympathetic state and a sympathetic state. So the sympathetic state, if the nervous system is in a sympathetic state, that probably means that it's aroused, it's more likely to be stressed. This doesn't always have to be negative stress. This can also be the nervousness when you're about to give a public presentation or something. So it can be positive stress as well. But if it's in a chronic sort of situation, so things such as anxiety and like really feeling stressed, that's probably more a reflection of people being in a sympathetic, stressed state within their nervous system most of the time. Whereas the opposite is a parasympathetic state, which is more the sort of hypo-aroused. So very little energy, low drive. And that's something where we think of burnout or depression or fatigue, et cetera, et cetera. Ideally, your nervous system should be able to flow and jump very flexibly between those two, because it's obviously important for your body to go into stress mode really quickly and effectively if you need to. So if we think back to evolutionary times, back in the day, it was really important that if a lion was running at you, you were able to run away really quickly and not start thinking about it. But is this lion hungry? And does he really want to eat me, or is he going to eat my friend first? It's important for your body to be able to respond immediately, go into flight or fight mode and take care of the situation. But then once the lion is gone, it's also important for your body to be able to relax really quickly and to recover and to rest and digest. And it's exactly the same the other way around. If you're sleeping or if you're relaxing, you want your body to be actually relaxing and recovering. There's a lot of really important chemical processes that are taking place. If we're sleeping, for example, it's really important for our brain to be able to go through different processes, like memory consolidation happens very much at night when we're dreaming. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not resting well, all of those things are going to be affected. So ideally, you want to be in a sense that it's flowing nice and back and forth, but easy, it's flexible. It can happen in this direction quickly, but it can adjust into the other direction quickly. The best way, I think, to get in touch with the state that you're in right now is really listening to your 5 senses. So when you do things like breath work and meditation and some psychosomatic work, you'll hear this phrase of tune into your body and what are you feeling? And some people don't know what that even means. So basically, it literally means that thinking about what can I hear right now? What can I smell right now? What can I feel? What can I taste? That in itself is already tuning into your body because that's the language of your body. That's the information that your body takes up from the environment. Your brain turns it into certain chemical signals and attaches a meaning to it. So even just sitting on this chair, if I really focus, I can feel the pressure of the floor on my feet. I can feel the wind coming through the window. I can feel it on my skin. That's already tuning into your body. And the more you do that, the better you're going to be at identifying different sensations within your body. So it'll be easier for you to say, oh yeah, I can feel there's a knot in my stomach and it's feeling a little bit nauseous. And that might be a sign of anxiety. Or when I'm really angry, I can feel my chest is tight and my head feels like it's about to explode and I go red and my skin gets like super hot. All of those are the language of the body. Those are signs that our body is telling us. So when we're saying something like, I feel angry, that's the language of the mind. The language of the body is at a different level. The language of the body is saying, I feel hot. I feel tense. I feel like very highly energetic. I want to punch something. That's the language of the body. And understanding both of those languages is super, super important to be able to balance our nervous system back into a way where it's fluctuating nicely between those 2 levels.
That's super, super interesting to hear. Thank you so much for explaining this. And also, I think it's very useful to learn yourself that. First of all, listen to yourself and then learn to recognize the different languages. That's amazing. That's an amazing thing to learn, right? You can do it right now because you love it. Everybody has a nervous system. Without it, you cannot even live. So that's amazing.
And if it's not in balance, it also results in a lot of the symptoms that we're going through. Like I said, the people who are in a hyper-aroused state are often the people that are suffering from anxiety and that are suffering from really high stress levels. And there's just this deluge of symptoms that come from that. If you go into more depth, when our bodies are in a stress response, they're releasing what we call stress hormones. So that would be adrenaline, that would be cortisol. And those are great at preparing us for running away or for punching someone, but they're not great if they persist at high levels for a long amount of time because certain parts of your system are shut down when you're in stress. If you're running away from a lion, it's not important to digest your food anymore. It's not important for your wounds to heal right now anymore. It's not important for your immune system to be functioning anymore. So all of the blood circulation, all of the focus, all of the energy goes to your muscles, goes to your brain. So there's just different functions that get completely shut down, which is fine for a short amount of time. But over a long amount of time, if we look at the effects of chronic stress, this is where we have really high inflammation. We have digestive problems. I think there's a lot of autoimmune disorders that probably have a link to digestion and the stomach and the gut not working as it should be. There's just so much stuff that is not actually due to an organic cause. It's due to stress and those stress hormones being in our body at a high level for far too long. So you're really preventing a lot of other stuff also, like physical diseases from happening if you learn how to regulate your nervous system. It's one of the most effective preventative things that you can do, similar to exercise and good diet, etc., etc. Learning how to regulate your emotions, learning how to regulate your nervous system is a super, super important way to take care of your mental and physical health and prevent any of the chronic conditions from happening that we very often see in society these days.
Yeah, thank you so much, because that's really insightful, right? And also it shows something about, because you mentioned stress, but I think stress is an effect of an unsafe feeling, right? You feel unsafe, and that's why you have stress, because you have to run away from the lion, like you said before. But once you are aware that it's no lion, it's just a duck you're facing or a sweet small kitten, then you can relax, and the stress is not necessary anymore. And there's such easy ways to come back to this state of safety in your nervous system, I think. Because, for example, I think when you breathe out longer than you breathe in, you already tell your nervous system that you're safe, because you don't need this extra oxygen to run away from the lion, right? It's just, you can use it the other way around, just to ease yourself and make sure that you know that you are safe enough to don't need stress in your body, in your in your physical body also.
Yeah. And I think that's where, as I was speaking to in the beginning, that's where I felt that just doing talk therapy is sometimes very limited, because talk therapy is really a top-down approach. It's trying to approach a problem from your mind and then convincing your body that it's okay, we're safe, there's no lion here, you don't have to stress about it. But your body's, I can feel the lion, I can smell it, I can see any kind of threats. And that's why I'm going into the stress response. And the emotional brain will always win out over the rational brain. It's the older brain. It's the more powerful brain. It processes information at a speed that is up to 1 million times faster than the rational brain. So trying to rationalize yourself out of a feeling and out of a stress response is very unlikely to work. It's as if it's this David and Goliath situation. The emotional brain is the powerhouse of what drives our emotions and what drives our behaviors. So just learning to understand that as well, for me, is so important for clients to understand, because then they're like, oh, so I'm not broken. This is just my body trying to protect me from something that isn't there, but that doesn't matter. The body does not respond to real threats. It responds to perceived threats. So there doesn't even have to be anything that is really and truly threatening. It's enough for it to be potentially threatening. Whoop, off we go into stress response. And these days, it's not the lion that stresses us. It's not things that are physically threatening to our lives. Very often, it's actually emotional things. It's the boss that makes a comment about that we didn't do a good job on the last project. It's our partner messaging another girl. It's my mom telling me that I look fat in a dress. Those are not real threats to our physical survival, but they're more on an emotional level. And because we're social beings and we depend on other people in order to survive, that's a message that threatens us. Because if we're doing something, if we're acting in a certain way, if we are something that threatens our social relationships, that indirectly threatens our survival. So our body is going to go into stress response. If someone indicates, hey, you're not okay the way that you are, And you need to be worried about me having a relationship with you and you having my support, my encouragement, my love, my attention. Your body is going to be like, whoa, this is a threat. And we now need to jump into stress. So if this happens 5 times a day, it's no wonder that we're in a chronic stress status all the time and that we do not get to recover from that properly.
Yeah, so I think that brings us back to our initial subject of today, and that's the difficulties and benefits of therapy, because I think what you just mentioned is so true and must be very recognizable and for many people who are listening right now. So I think that's just another argument to reach out to others.
Yeah.
Speak about things, get professional help if you want to try it, and then be surprised. Maybe that's a good way to see things. It's not your fault that you're into some things and you don't have to feel guilty about anything. It's just your body's response, and then you can just try what helps, and then it will.
Yeah. It's really just therapy is just a space for you to meet yourself. And that's all parts of yourself, even the parts that you put away in some drawer and you don't want to face and you don't feel like they're safe to face. And those are parts of you though. So the longer you shy away from facing those parts and the longer you deny those parts, the longer you're denying a part of yourself. And if you're not being and living life as you, there will be always something that's missing. And there will always be this part of you that feels like there is a part of me that's not good enough, because even I can't accept that. So how is anyone else going to be interested in that part and is going to be able to love that part and accept that part? So I think that's what a therapist can really help with, is just uncovering all of those parts and meeting them from a space of curiosity, and rather just like understanding where those parts come from and not judging those parts, just understanding instead of judging. And that is super, super important in self-growth and learning more about who we actually are.
Definitely. And thanks again for those very, very wise and useful words, and for tuning in today together with us.
Yay!
and yeah, that's the end of our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening and for watching and for tuning in. You have been watching Maritime Unity with myself, Eva Lianne, and also with my guest Anna today. We hope you will tune in next time again. See you later and have a good day.